Welcome, and thank you for participating in today's webinar, Transition Basics, A Guide for Families. My name is Tara Bramer. I am the Director of Programs at Family Network on Disabilities and will be the moderator for today's training. This training will be recorded and archived for future viewing on the FND website at www.fndusa.org. Questions will be answered at the end of the training via the question box provided within your toolbar. If we are unable to answer everyone's questions today, the remaining questions will be answered within 30 days and archived on the website as well. Should you have additional questions, please email transition@fndusa.org. This email address will be available for the next 30 days to submit questions directly related to today's training. This presentation was developed by the Family Involvement Subcommittee of the Florida Department of Education, Bureau of Exceptional Education and Student Services, or BEES, State Secondary Transition Interagency Committee, and facilitated by Lisa Friedman Chavez, Project 10, Transition Education Network's Regional Transition Representative. The Family Involvement Subcommittee includes representatives from the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, Children's Medical Services, Family Network on Disabilities, Florida BEES, Florida Developmental Disabilities Council, Parent to Parent of Miami, Project 10, the Transition Education Network, and SEDNet. The goal of this workshop is for families of students with disabilities to better understand the secondary transition process and how to actively and effectively participate. The objectives are to increase your knowledge and awareness of transition services, individual education plan IEP components, self-advocacy and self-determination, diploma options, responsibilities of schools, families, and students, and to provide available resources. I would like to take this time to welcome today's presenters, Sheila Grick-Swift and Alex Hueso. Sheila Grick-Swift is the Program Specialist for Secondary Transition with the Florida Department of Education, Bureau of Exceptional Education and Student Services. In this role, she serves as the team leader for indicators 1, graduation, 2, dropout, 13, IEP transition components, and 14, post-school outcomes of Florida State Performance Plan and the project liaison to Project 10, the Transition Education Network, the BEES discretionary project charged with technical assistance and training in the area of secondary transition. Prior to assuming this role, Ms. Gritz was employed as a training specialist with the Transition Center at the University of Florida and as the coordinator of the Florida Self-Determination Initiative. Alex is a first-generation Cuban-American born and raised in Miami. She is a strong parent advocate, has been happily married for 15 years, and has 2 amazing kids, Damien and Danielle. Damien is 14 years old and was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. He is currently attending high school at Robert Morgan, where he participates in the sound engineering program in addition to the general education curriculum. Danielle is 11 years old and is currently in middle school at South Miami Middle, where she participates in the Theater Magnet program and is in the Gifted program. Alex currently works with Parent to Parent of Miami and is a member of the State Secondary Transition Interagency Committee the Family Involvement Subcommittee. Sheila?
Transition services is defined as a coordinated set of activities within a results-oriented process that is focused on improving academic and functional achievement. Results-oriented process relates to measurable post-secondary goals, the student's outcomes. Transition services facilitate school to post-school activities such as education, vocational or career technical education, state university system, colleges, and integrated employment, which includes supported employment, adult education and services, independent living, and community participation. It's critical that transition services are based on each individual student's needs and take into account the student's strengths, preferences, and interests. Transition services also must include instruction, related services, community experiences, employment, and post-school adult living, with consideration for development of goals or objectives if necessary, and if appropriate, the acquisition of daily living skills and provision of a functional vocational evaluation. Transition services for students with disabilities may be special education if provided as specially designed instruction, or a related service if required to assist a student with a disability to benefit from special education. Beginning with the IEP to be in effect at age 14, the primary purpose of the meeting is to identify the transition services needs for the student. A notice must be provided to the parent and the student must be invited to attend. The team must ensure that the student's strengths, preferences, and interests are considered. If a student does not attend the IEP meeting at age 14, there must be documentation of other steps that were taken to ensure the student's strengths, preferences, and interests were considered. Additionally, beginning at age 14, the team must develop the student's course of study, determine the diploma option, and begin the process of identifying the transition services needs, including consideration for instruction or information in the area of self-determination. The statement of whether the student is pursuing a course of study leading to a standard diploma or a special diploma is a description of the student's instructional program and experiences. It is more than just a statement of the diploma decision. Students and parents should receive a detailed explanation of all diploma options and associated outcomes to effectively participate in the determination. The decision must be addressed in the IEP developed during the student's 8th grade year or during the year of the student's 14th birthday, whichever comes first. Self-determination instruction or information helps the students participate in their own IEP meetings and self-advocate so that needed post-secondary goals may be identified and in place by age 14. Although agencies are not generally invited at age 14, the IEP team may determine that it is appropriate to invite an agency for a given student. The IEP team must be reconvened to identify alternative strategies if an agency is invited and services that are indicated on the IEP are not provided.
So what is self-determination and why is it so important for our students? Self-determination is taking control and making decisions that affect one's own life. Gaining these self-determination skills helps students make choices, set goals, and manage their lives. This will be a brief review of self-determination, but we will be hosting a future webinar dedicated to self-determination and self-advocacy in the near future. These are the components of self-determination: choice-making and decision-making. These are the skills for making decisions and understanding the pros and cons of each option. Problem-solving. These are the skills that are used when a solution is not readily known. Decision-making and choice-making are part of this process. Goal-setting and attainment. This is a skill of determining how you're going to accomplish what you want, setting goals, planning for implementation, and measuring success. Self-regulation. Skills include self-observation, self-evaluation, and self-reinforcement. This is the process of monitoring one's own actions. For example, a student with autism who is sensitive to loud noises may bring earplugs to school, and if he begins to sense anxiety over the level of noise, he would take initiative to insert the earplugs. Self-instruction are the skills that assist the student in their own using their own verbal prompts for solving problems. Self-advocacy is the skills necessary to be able to speak up or defend a cause of a person. The internal locus of control is the belief that one has control over outcomes that are important to life. For example, if a student believes that her participation in the IEP process will not have an effect on the outcome, she may decide that it is not worthwhile to participate. However, if she has a strong internal locus of control, she will be more apt to getting involved because she truly believes that her input in the meeting will have an effect. Self-efficacy is the conviction that one successfully execute the behavior required to produce a given outcome. For example, some students may easily give up if trying something once does not achieve the desired outcome. But students with a strong sense of self-efficacy believe that they will reach their goal and will continue trying. How many people can ride a bicycle without training wheels perfectly the very first time? It usually takes a lot of practice, but if the person believes that they will eventually achieve success, they will continue trying. Efficacy expectations. The belief that a specific behavior is performed. It will lead to an anticipated outcome. In the previous example, the efficacy expectation may be that with practice, the person will be able to keep their balance when riding a bike without training wheels. Self-awareness and self-knowledge. These are the skills of knowing one's own strengths, weaknesses, abilities, and limitations, and knowing how to use these unique attributions to beneficially influence one's own life. Here are some activities to increase self-determination. Students should try to do the following. Set personal goals. Solve problems that act as barriers to achieving these goals. Make appropriate choices based on personal preferences and interests. Participate in decisions that impact the quality of their lives. Advocate for self. Create action plans to achieve goals. Self-regulate and self-manage day-to-day actions. The second to last bullet reads, create action plans to achieve goals. To some people, creating action plans come naturally. Others may need little assistance. The basic components of an action plan include the goal or goals, action steps, people responsible for completing the action steps, and a time frame. If a student wants to have more social activities in the community, the family may help create an action plan that will assist their child in achieving his or her intended outcome. Some other activities that students can become involved in include participation in student government, the Florida Youth Leadership Forum, which is sponsored by the Able Trust, the Florida Youth Council, which is sponsored through Family Cafe. More information regarding youth leadership opportunities is included at the end of this presentation. Families can also help promote self-determination. They can guide students in maximizing personal expectations, having high expectations, and to communicate them often to your child. Support your child in achieving their goals, including getting a job or going on to college or a vocational program. Promoting disability awareness. Many students go through school unaware of their disability. It is important for students to be aware of their disabilities and their needs. Being aware of strengths, preferences, and needs. It is also important for students to know about their unique strengths and abilities. Families should explore opportunities for youth to learn and discuss their disability. Fostering self-respect, self-esteem, self-determination, and independence. Schools work on improving students' self-determination skills. The families can also help by seeking and providing opportunities for the youth to improve and strengthen their self-respect, self-esteem, and self-determination skills. For example, explore leadership activities at their local church or opportunities for service learning in the community. Supporting active involvement of the student in the IEP meeting and transition planning. Students should be directing their IEPs to the greatest extent possible. This may include sending invitations to IEP team members. Providing decision-making opportunities. Families can also provide opportunities to practice decision-making, such as deciding where to eat or what leisure activities they would like to engage in and with whom.
Successful transitions require lots of planning and decision-making. One of the most important decisions is the type of high school diploma that the student will work toward. The student and family make this diploma decision with the IEP team based on the student's needs, preferences, and interests. In Florida, we have a 4-year standard diploma and 2 3-year options, college preparatory or career preparatory. We also offer special diplomas option 1 and 2. Additional ways that students may exit include a certificate of completion, State of Florida High School Performance-Based Diploma, or a GED, which is a State of Florida diploma. It is important that students and families are fully informed about diploma options because a student's opportunities for employment, further education and training, and military service after graduation may depend on the type of diploma the student earns. The diploma decision may affect your young person's options after graduation. For example, the military, colleges, and universities usually do not accept a special diploma, particularly for degree-seeking programs. For this reason, the standard diploma should be the starting point for IEP teams when making the diploma decision. Under specific circumstances, the results of the FCAT and/or end-of-course examinations may be waived for the purpose of enabling the student to meet graduation requirements. Resources on diploma options are included at the end of this presentation. Beginning with the IEP to be in effect at age 15. The primary purpose will be to review and update the transition services needs of the student, and the team must follow all of the requirements from age 14 regarding review, updating, and if needed, revising the IEP components. Changes occur with the IEP to be in effect at age 16. The primary purpose becomes the development of measurable post-secondary goals and transition services for the student. The team will continue to follow all of the requirements for ages 14 and 15, and they will develop measurable post-secondary goals based on age-appropriate transition assessment in the areas of education, training, employment, and if needed, independent living. IEP teams must consider the student's needs for instruction again, or the provision of information regarding self-determination. One of the reasons for this is for students to actively participate in identifying their measurable post-secondary goals. Age-appropriate transition assessment is also critical in this process of determining the student's strengths and preferences in the areas of education and/or training, employment, and independent living. Annual goals and transition services should lead the student on the right path to achieving his or her post-secondary goals and assuming the rights and responsibilities of adulthood. While at the IEP you'll look at developing multiple measurable post-secondary goals, we're going to provide one example of a post-secondary goal in the area of employment. Within 6 months of graduation, through the assistance of vocational rehabilitation, Jill will obtain part-time employment in the area of veterinary medicine. The team must also identify transition services that will help the student reach the measurable post-secondary goals. Instruction is formal instruction in school, home, or community and may include community-based instruction, travel training, academic and career technical education courses, self-determination, and self-advocacy training, and extracurricular activities. Related services include transportation and developmental, corrective, and other support services that will help benefit the student in instruction. Community experiences include participation in activities outside the school building, such as recreation, using public transportation, and shopping. Employment encompasses all of the activities that prepare a student for employment, such as career education, developing good work habits, technical skills training, guided practice in school and community work, career placement, supported employment, and on-the-job training. Post-school adult living prepares students for important adult activities that are done only occasionally, such as those necessary for living and participating in the community, including renting an apartment, paying bills, filing insurance, and voting. If appropriate, the IEP team will also look at daily living skills, which are activities that teach a student daily personal skills, such as preparing meals, grooming, and budgeting, or functional vocational evaluation, which is a tool that collects information on a student's career interest and aptitudes. Transition services may be addressed through the development of measurable annual goals or short-term objectives or in other sections of the IEP. The team must also develop measurable annual goals, invite any agency that's likely to provide or pay for transition services. Consent is required, and it is recommended that the team begin discussing legal rights and responsibilities that will transfer at age 18. The annual goals must be related to the student's transition service needs and must lead ultimately back to the post-secondary goals. As we've discussed, if an agency fails to provide transition services described in the IEP team, the team must reconvene to identify alternative strategies to meet the student's objectives. Everyone has the fundamental freedom to live as independently as possible. Transition is the time to focus on building the student's skills and abilities for becoming as independent as possible and for assuming adult responsibilities. It is the team's responsibility to recognize that the decision-making authority transfers from the parent to the 18-year-old student and to prepare the student for this transfer.
There are also many other facets to consider in preparing a student for life after high school. These are some ideas families can explore with their son or daughter. Consider university and colleges. What colleges and universities are located close to the student's home? What are the admission criteria? What programs are offered? Do they have Disability Resource Center? If so, schedule a visit to meet with them. Employment options. Visiting employment sites and speaking with workers, exploring jobs through online resources, participating in paid and non-paid work experience, volunteering, and participating in Disability Mentoring Day where available. Career centers. Researching what career and technical or vocational programs are available and what are the entry requirements. Visiting the locations whenever possible and talking with some of the admission department. The student can even contact the program and make his or her own appointment. Living arrangements. Some living arrangements include supported living, having a roommate or roommates, independent living in a dorm, apartment, or home, or possibly a unit on a family member's or family friend's property. There are many things to consider about living arrangements, including the level of support needed and the financial responsibilities. Recreation and leisure. These are the activities in the community that your son or daughter is interested in. It is important to start exploring them before they exit high school. Recreation and leisure activities are great ways to meet new people, get connections, including possible job leads, and be an active member of the community. Community service is part of being an active community member. Keep in mind that this should not replace paid employment. How can families promote post-secondary education? As mentioned previously, it is important for students and family to understand diploma options. A student planning to attend a 4-year college and obtain a degree should be working towards a standard diploma in high school. Support your son or daughter to research the different technical or vocational programs, college and universities. What are the requirements? What support is available for students with disabilities? Whenever possible, schedule site visits to see these programs. It is important for individuals with disabilities to understand what disclosure means and why it is sometimes beneficial. In the realm of post-secondary education, students who self-disclose may be able to receive special accommodations. It is important to note that students cannot access accommodations without disclosing their disability in post-secondary education, and the accommodations provided in post-secondary education may differ from those provided in high school. Post-secondary education is costly. However, there are financial options. Work with your son or daughter to find out the cost of programs, and if needed, research the requirements and pros and cons of different financing options. As we discussed with self-determination, it is important for individuals with disabilities to know their strengths and needs. They should also be aware of what strategies have been helpful and what methods should be avoided. Families can also be helpful in promoting employment. Employment is a natural expectation for most individuals in the community and should be supported for students with disabilities. There are different ways that families can promote employment, including the following: exploring career interests through hands-on activities, observations, and resources. There are many online resources to assist in identifying career interests and preferences. Introducing your child to people who do various kinds of work and discussing their job duties is another way to assist. Work experience can be paid or non-paid and gathered through different methods, such as internships, apprenticeships, service learning, volunteering, on-the-job training, and community-based vocational education. Each community has a variety of supports and services. Some examples are the Division of Vocational Rehab, high school high-tech programs, and mentoring programs where available. Many students and their families fear a loss of benefits if the student begins earning a paycheck. All counties have supports for benefits planning. Please contact your local Social Security Administration office and/or Area Work Incentive Coordinator. The Project 10 website also has a section for district resources. Visitors to the website can select the county they're interested in and see what is available and who to contact for more information. The website is included in the resources section at the end of our presentation.
With the IEP to be in effect at age 17, the primary purpose is to update the measurable post-secondary goals and transition services and inform the parent and student of the transfer of rights. The team must follow all of the requirements from ages 14 through 16. In Florida, the age of majority is 18. When developing the IEP to be in effect when the student turns age 17, the student must be informed of the rights that will transfer to him or her at age 18. The IEP must document that the student was informed. There are several ways to provide decision-making assistance, and it is important for families and students to explore these options prior to the time a student reaches age 18. For the past several years, the focus has been on building the student's skills and abilities for becoming as independent as possible and for assuming adult responsibilities. This next year should be spent matching ways to provide assistance with decision-making for the student's current skills level. For more information about decision-making alternatives, please refer to the Lighting the Way to Guardianship and Other Decision-Making Alternatives Guidebook, which is a resource listed at the end of this presentation. With the IEP to be in effect at age 18, again the purpose will be updating measurable post-secondary goals, transition services, and also to provide parent and student a notice regarding the transfer of rights when the student reaches age 18. Although at age 18 the rights transfer to the student, parents still retain the right to notice. The IEP to be in effect at ages 19 through 21. The team must follow all of the previous requirements from ages 14 to 18, and students who have reached the age of majority and to whom rights have transferred can now provide the consent to invite agencies. Under free and appropriate public education, commonly known as FAPE, students who graduate with any credential other than a standard diploma are eligible to continue their education through their 22nd birthday. The school district may allow the student to continue through the semester or the end of the school year in which the student turns 22. Each school district's policies can be found in their ESE policies and procedures on the Bureau of Exceptional Education and Student Services website. Additionally, the team must provide the student's parent with all of the notices required by the IDEA, must provide written notice of change of placement for students who are graduating with a standard diploma, and must provide a summary of performance for selected students. A summary of performance is required for students who are exiting with a standard diploma or aging out of eligibility for exceptional student education. More information regarding the summary of performance can be found on the Project 10 website, including an informational spoke on the transition wheel and an online training module.
Although family and school involvement is vital during transition, your young person also has responsibilities in the transition planning process, such as taking an active role in developing the IEP, completing age-appropriate transition assessments, learning about and understanding the transition process, thinking about what services would help him or her in daily adult life so that the transition team may invite the appropriate agencies to the IEP meeting, thinking about what he or she wants to do and where he or she wants to do it in the years immediately after high school, meeting and working with career and guidance counselors to determine what courses and other school experiences are required for post-school activities, learning more about his or her disability and about how to get the services and supports he or she needs to achieve long-term goals, developing and using self-determination and self-advocacy skills, going to class, completing homework assignments, saving money for post-school activities, learning how to use and maintain the assistive technology he or she needs, and accepting responsibility for chores at home. Again, the family provides the most day-to-day support for their child from birth to adult life. So the family knows best which services their young person needs to make the transition from school to adult life. Take an active role in this transition process. Ask questions. Make suggestions. Here are some specific roles that the families play in the transition process. Keep records of all transition-related services and activities that occur. Review your son or daughter's IEP goals. Review graduation requirements and help make decisions about diploma options. Provide opportunities for your son or daughter to explore post-school options like employment, career centers, colleges, universities, living arrangements, recreation and leisure, and the community services, and support your son or daughter in developing his or her measurable post-secondary goals. You may also want to support your son or daughter in writing personal letters of invitation for teachers and agencies, personnel to attend his or her IEP meeting. Identify options for decision-making assistance and matching needs with the least restrictive option related to the transfer of rights at age 18. Help your son or daughter to develop a portfolio that includes an updated IEP, assessment scores, learning style information, grade point average, class rank, honors or awards, work evaluations, work experiences, and other related information. It is important to be aware of the school district and school responsibilities. The school district has the main responsibility to make sure that the IEP components for transition are being addressed for students 14 and older. If a service identified on the IEP to be provided by an agency has not been provided, the school district must get the IEP team back together to find another way of providing the service. The school district is responsible for inviting agencies to meetings if the agency is likely to provide services with consent. It is important to know that if you do not consent to the agency's invitation, the school is not able to invite them to your meeting. The school must also schedule and conduct IEP meetings following IDEA requirements. The school district is also responsible for helping students learn self-determination skills so that the student can effectively participate in IEP meetings and self-advocate if appropriate. Here are some of the possible team members and resources. Throughout the transition years, students receive a variety of supports. The completion of high school is the beginning of adult life. Entitlement to public education ends, and the young person and their families are faced with many options and decisions about the future. The most common choices for future are pursuing career and technical or vocational training, or further academic education, getting a job, and living independently. The following slides list some possible team members and community resources. The student may invite anyone he or she would like to participate, including individuals within his or her circle of support. A circle of support includes friends, family members, and others who are are an important part of the individual's life, such as church members, specialists in the field of mental health or behavioral health, occupational or physical therapists, and many more. Also included in the team are community agencies. These are just a few examples of agencies that may be involved in the transition planning process. There are many agencies and organizations that are specific to your areas. Please note that some agencies have case managers and/or case coordinators. Also included as possible team members are representatives from post-secondary programs. These representatives may not be able to attend the IEP meeting, but can still be involved in the transition planning process.
Additional transition-related resources are Transition, Planning for Students with Disabilities, a Guide for Families, the TILE, Tips for Transition, Diploma resources, the Diploma Decisions for Students with Disabilities, What Parents Need to Know, facts.org, Youth Leadership Resources, the Florida Youth Leadership Forum, the Florida Youth Leadership Council, the Family Care Council, Boys State and Girls State, Junior Achievement, information on legal rights and decision-making options, legal guide for new adults, planning ahead, lighting the way to guardianship and other decision-making alternatives, a manual for individuals and families, agencies and resources regarding benefits planning, Social Security Administration, and the Red Book, a guide for work incentives, some federally funded parent centers through Family Network on Disabilities, Central Florida Parent Center, and Parent to Parent of Miami. Additional agencies and resources, the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, IDEA website, Florida Department of Education, Bureau of Exceptional Education and Student Services, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, Children's Medical Services, and Disability Rights Florida, the Family Cafe, the Florida Board of Governors State University System Services for Students with Disabilities, Florida Community Colleges, Disability Support Services, the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council, and Florida Division of Blind Services, Florida Division of Voc Rehab, Florida Independent Living Council, FYI Transition, Workforce Education, Vocational Technical Centers, and Workforce Florida, Inc., and One Stop Centers. We will now open the floor to review questions. If we are unable to answer everyone's questions today, the remaining questions will be answered within 30 days and archived on the website as well. Should you have additional questions, please email transition@FNDUSA. This email address will be available for the next 30 days to submit questions directly related to today's training. A few of the questions that we do have today for some of our panelists, one big one that's coming through is asking if the handouts or the PowerPoint will be available for download. We will put that available for download as soon as the website, as soon as the workshop itself has been archived on the FND website at www.fndusa.org. One question we have here, can you include vocational rehabilitation assistance in the IEP if the student has not been referred or found eligible for VR services? Sheila?
Tara, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I sure can. Can you include vocational rehabilitation assistance in the IEP if the student has not been referred or found to be eligible for VR services?
Okay, this is really probably a question for the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation partly as well. My take on this question is if they haven't been referred, then there's no way that they could have been found eligible. The bottom line in terms of including them in the IEP team meeting is that we have to have parent consent or consent of the student if the student has reached the age of 18 and the rights have transferred. We cannot compel a VR to send a representative, but the school district can in fact invite VR as long as they have consent.
Okay, Sheila, this next one will be for you as well. What is the difference between option 1 and option 2 for the special diploma?
Good question. Basically, option 1, it is more rigorous. It has more academic requirements around reading, math, social studies, science, with some opportunities for career and technical education courses as well. Option 2 is really a diploma that's based on employment and community competencies. Option 2 is most frequently used for students who are over age and who are at risk of dropping out and have not been successful in terms of meeting their credit requirements.
Okay. Sheila, this one would probably be for you again as well. Do you know what the criteria for competitively unemployable is for VR?
Okay, the two words don't work together for me. Competitively and then unemployable.
Unemployable is the question.
Okay, that really is a VR question, and I really would prefer that VR respond to that question. So if we can take that one down, we'll get with our colleagues from the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation and get a concrete answer for you.
Wonderful. Next question is, do you know any programs that help to pay for student college?
We do, and we have lots of resources on the Project 10 website. There's also a publication that the Florida Department of Education puts out annually. It's called Counseling for Future Education. Our Bureau does a subsection, usually several pages, within that handbook that talk about all of the important things that need to happen for students who choose to pursue post-secondary education, and also has links to certain scholarships information.
And Sheila, at what age can VR provide support, funding, and real personal support to a student who has been approved as a VR client? In many counties, VR tells the student that they can't provide anything but advice until the student no longer receives services from the school system. Is this true? What regulations cover this?
Okay, that really is a question for the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. There is a, on the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation website, Kirk Hall, who is the transition coordinator for vocational rehabilitation, has a brochure available that talks about when students within the school district should be referred to VR based on their post-secondary goals, the areas that they want to pursue, and as well as the different ways that VR can be involved, but that really is a VR question.
Okay. How would you like to save any VR questions that do come through for VR then?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I'm not comfortable speaking on behalf of another agency.
Okay. Another question is, how, who, and where are measurable and post-secondary goals tracked and posted? How are districts held accountable for post-school outcomes specific to employment?
Okay. Measurable post-secondary goals have to be developed beginning at the age of 16, and Florida has a process for self-assessment where every district in the state is assessed on how they're doing with their IEP components annually. And if the districts have findings of noncompliance, there are certain requirements that they have to follow through on if they do not meet the requirements for secondary transition, with measurable post-secondary goals being one of those components. Basically, the measurable post-secondary goals, as we mentioned in the presentation, should be driving the train with IEP development for students 16 and older. And every other component of that IEP should essentially be helping the student work towards meeting those post-secondary goals. Regarding our post-school outcomes, Florida has a process in place called the Florida Education Training and Placement Information Program that provides us data on post-school outcomes for Florida's youth with disabilities. That information is shared with the districts. That information is also available on the Bureau's website. Not student specific, but you can see how districts are doing in terms of their post-school outcomes. Districts, however, the ESE director does have access to data on the post-school outcomes for their specific districts.
Thank you, Sheila. Right now, that looks like our line of questions. We do have a few statements in regards to VR that we can definitely refer towards VR and get those answers and post them up on our website when we archive this webinar as well.
Okay, thank you.
We would like to take this time to put a special thank you to the State Secondary Transition Interagency Committee's Subcommittee on Family Involvement with Family Network on Disabilities, Parent to Parent of Miami, and Project 10. We would also like to please take this time, if you could, to answer quickly a 5-question evaluation that will be coming up on your screen for our evaluation for today. Okay. Polling on that one seems to have slowed down. I will close that and open up the next one. Again, thank you very much for taking the time to help us fill out our evaluation. We greatly appreciate your feedback. Again, this webinar will be archived on the FND website at fndusa.org, and the PowerPoint and any additional questions along with the questions that were shared today will be archived there as well. If you need additional information or have additional questions, please email transition@fndusa.org. Thank you all very much and have a wonderful day.